Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, Mechanical Evolution, written by Kyodon. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin. Mechanical Evolution, Speech, Thoughts Tape 1. My name is Izuku Midoriya. And I am trying to create life. A fully sentient android who will go on to save lives. A hero. I know it sounds crazy. But I can't take it anymore. All I have is my mom, and she is so busy it's getting to the point where I rarely see her anymore. And due to my quirklessness, making friends is all but impossible. So I want to have company, then my only choice is to make some. Lucky I have, well, let's just say an above average intelligence and a keen interest in machines. I am making these tapes so in the event that an incident occurs that causes me to lose my memories, I'll be able to listen to these and figure out what I was doing. I have already started drawing up blueprints, and I plan on getting my materials from that beach where everyone throws their trash. I'm hoping to get her ready by the UA entrance exam, which will be happening in about 9 months. Hopefully, this will go well. Tape 2. This is not going well. To put it simply, I underestimated the type of parts one needed to do this. The beach has basically nothing strong or complex enough to use, and I don't have the money for the parts one need. If I can't find a way to get parts, then this project is done. Tape 3. It seems that for the first time in my life I got lucky. When I was searching for parts on the beach, a black portal appeared and swallowed me. Next thing I knew, I was in a dark room with a very strange man. He has no face except for a mouth and outlines of where his eyes should be. He wore a black suit and was attached to what looked like life support. He introduced himself as All for One, and he told me he could help me with my project. I asked how he knew about my project. I hadn't told anyone, not even my mom, about what I was doing. He just laughed and said it didn't matter. He told me that he could give me all the resources I needed to complete my work. But he said he wanted one thing. He wanted me to make him an android as well. That is to say, he wanted me to make a second android for him. Not that he wanted me to turn him into an android. Jay just wanted to clarify that. This all seemed so shady. In truth, I probably should have said no. But I can't be alone again. Tape 4. All for One wasn't lying when he said he could give me everything I needed. Parts, better blueprint paper, computers. He even gave me a fully functioning lab. I can't tell you how much better it is to work in a lab instead of just my bedroom. Tape 8. Finally. The blueprints are done and I can get to work on the bodies for the two. All for One had given me instructions on what he wanted his android to look like. He said he wanted it to be a child. White-haired, male. He seemed to know exactly what he wanted, which made me a little suspicious, but at this point, there was no turning back. I decided I would make my android female since I was already making a male one, so I figured I would go for some variety. I know that a female android would technically be called a gynoid, but that sounds weird and I don't think it truly matters all that much. It's getting awkward to just call them the android that belongs to me and the android that belongs to him. Also, it kind of makes it sound like we own them, which doesn't sound right with me. I have decided to call her Sukue. Pronounced Sukui, it means salvation. I named her that because I hope she can be not just my salvation, but salvation to many different people as well. Tape 30. The bodies are nearing completion. I gave Sukue green wire-like hair with plugs at the end. These plugs will serve as a way to interface with any form of technology. It still looks like hair, but it's really shiny. It's actually really pretty to look at. Its bright green matches her eyes. She is somewhat muscular for a female, but not too much so. Just enough to support her weapons system. I've been trying to make her conventionally attractive. After all, many girls talk about how they wish they were prettier, and I don't want that for her. I want her to be happy with how she looks. The BRST were the most awkward part. I hesitated on giving her these, but one of the things I've heard girls complain about and bully other girls over is the size of their BRST, so my hands were tied. I hope I made them a decent size without making them too big. God, this is embarrassing. She will be powered by a fusion reactor, and on top of that, I've also made it so that she can absorb solar energy and use it as power in case something happens to her reactor or if she needs to attack. Oh, right, I should probably talk about her weapon system. First and foremost, her strength is insane. At max strength, she could most likely pick up a bus. Her durability is about on the same level as her strength, so all in all, unless she gets in a fight with someone with a powerful strength enhancement quirk, she'll be fine. She is also very durable when it comes to elemental damage. Electricity won't be able to do any significant damage, she's totally waterproof, and extremely fire resistant, although someone like Endeavor would still be able to destroy her. Her speed will be a few levels above the average person, although anyone with a quirk that can significantly boost their speed will likely still be faster. Lastly, for long-range attacks, I've given her the ability to blast condensed solar energy from her eyes. In other words, I gave her laser eyes. Her eyes will also be able to scan and analyze people. Although I can't do much more with her sensors until I can make her sentient. All for One told me not to give his android any weapons. I won't lie, this did make me feel better about working with him. Knowing that he could not use the android to hurt people. All I need to do is add the artificial skin, then I can move on to the hard part. Giving them life. Tape 33. So this is gonna be easier than I thought. You see, what I need to do is take brain waves and convert certain aspects of those brain waves and turn them into new brain waves. It's a lot more complicated than it sounds. At first, I was concerned that my inexperience would make things difficult. However, when I voiced this concern to All for One, he said he would partner me with someone who had experience with the brain. He calls himself the Doctor, and he is a genius. He seemed very interested in my project and me. He asked me what I planned to do after my project was done. To be honest, I didn't really know. I guess I'll just join you, as support course, and help Sukue with being a hero. Then he said something that concerned me. He said, "Why stop? You are creating a whole new form of life far beyond humans. Much like mine." I asked him what he meant about that, much like mine part. He didn't give me an answer. Tape 35. So I decided to use my own brain waves to make the baseline for Sukue. However, I also wanted to combine them with Kaken's. I've always admired Kaken's strength. His confidence, his willpower, his sheer longing to win. I would love for Sukue to have these traits. However, getting Kaken's brain waves would not be an easy task. I talked about this with All for One, and he said he would take care of this. I told him he really didn't need to. Mostly because I was concerned about Kaken. However, All for One seemed to read my mind and told me that he would be fine. I did not have the will to argue. The next day, All for One gave me a drive with Kaken's brain waves. I called Aunt Mitsuki and she said Kaken was fine. All for One is a very scary man. At the same time, All for One gave me the brain waves he wanted me to use for his android. The doctor instructed me to use these brain waves exactly and not to make any original ones. I told him that would make the android an exact copy of a person rather than a new person. They would even have the memories of that person. He said that was the point. For whatever reason, All for One wanted me to make a copy of someone. After analyzing the brain waves, I could tell that they were cut off at a certain point. Given the fact that the body for the android was that of a child, it seems like All for One wanted me to make a copy of someone as a child. Given that the android would have no weapons, I figured it would be fine to not look into this any further. After all, this might be a personal matter and I don't want to intrude. Tape 49. They're alive. They may not be up and moving around, but their programs are now sentient on a subconscious level. It's kind of like a baby in the WMB after their brain has fully formed. Sukue's program is taking the thoughts and feelings from mine and Bakugo's brain waves and using them a foundation to form a new person entirely. With new feelings and new thoughts. All for One's android, who he still won't tell me the name of, is much simpler. His program is just taking those memories and emotions and making it so they can continue on as if he was the original person. Also, as much as I didn't want to do it, I added something into her programming. A safety precaution. To make sure that she would never be able to hurt an innocent person. It's about 2 months before the UA entrance exam. I should be able to get her up and running long before then. Tape 52 tomorrow. Tomorrow is the day these two will be fully operational. We have already installed the program into their bodies. Now we just have to wait for their subconsciousness to adjust to their bodies and become fully conscious. All for One took the body of his now fully complete android. He congratulated me on my success and thanked me for making him the android. A black portal opened and he told me I could keep the lab before leaving. After that, I was left with Tsukue. Her fully completed form looked entirely human. The only thing that looked somewhat robotic was the plugs on the end of her hair. Although people would probably just assume that it was her quirk. This will be my last tape. With the project complete and my memory still intact, I don't really have a need for these. Still, I think I'll keep these around. Might be nice to listen through them again one day. End of tapes. Third person Izuku had stayed at the lab that night. His mother had been working late, so he was sure she went right to sleep that night. He woke up to find he had fallen asleep on the work table in his rolling chair. "Are you awake, father?" asked a sweet and somewhat robotic voice. Izuku froze. He looked up and found Tsukue. Upright, awake and looking right at him. Izuku backed up, startled by his creation, which caused him to accidentally fall out of his chair and onto the floor. "Ow," Izuku said. Tsukue rushed to his side. "Father. Are you okay? My sensors tell me that no damage has occurred, but are you in any pain?" Izuku didn't respond. He was too busy looking in amazement at his creation. "Father. Is something wrong?" Tsukue asked. "You're alive," Izuku said. His tone filled with disbelief. Tsukue looked at him confused. "Yes. You made me perfectly. The fact that I am operational should not be a surprise. You're alive. You're alive." Izuku shouted as he leaped up with glee. Izuku started barraging her with questions. "How do you feel? Are your touch sensors working right? Do you still have any of Kaken's or my memories?" "Father, please slow down," Tsukue said. "If I attempted to answer those all at once it would be confusing." Izuku realized that he had gotten carried away and apologized. Sorry. It's just. I had doubts. The whole idea of creating life just seemed insane even after all the work was already done. I guess I still didn't believe I could do it." Tsukue was still confused. "Father. Why did you doubt yourself so much?" Izuku didn't know how to answer that question. The numbers told him he would be able to do it, and after all, for One provided him with the resources, it should have been pretty clear that he would succeed. Still. To Izuku it was strange to think he could accomplish anything. After years of being called useless, to achieve something like this was. Tears went down Izuku's face. He had really done it. "Father." Tsukue said, alarmed by the tears. "Is something wrong? Have I done something to upset you?" Izuku tried to wipe the joyful tears from his eyes to no avail. No, it's just I did it." Tsukue had no idea what was going on. Tears were typically a sign of sadness, so why did her father seem happy? With her sensors not being able to figure out the best solution, she decided that she would just go with what felt right. And so the creation hugged her creator. Izuku's eyes widened as her arms closed around him. It had been so long since he had received a hug. Izuku Midoriya cried in his creation's arms as he was reminded of why he built her in the first place. Finally, he would never be lonely again. Meanwhile, a small boy woke up in a room. This room wasn't familiar to the boy and he had no idea on how he got here. He looked down to see he was in a bed. Also, something that was unfamiliar to him. Ah! I see you're awake. The boy looked to his side and screamed. Ha! To his left was the scariest-looking man he had ever seen. Come now. I know I look and sound different from what you remember, but it's still my little brother. All for one stared at the child form of his long-dead little brother. This time. This will go very differently. Speech, thoughts. Izuku Midoriya walked into her house after a long day of work, ready to go to bed. She sighed, looking at her door sadly. I'm so tired, I don't think I'll be able to make dinner. I hope Izuku found something to eat. After Izuku's father died, Izuku had to work 2 jobs in order to allow her and Izuku to live comfortably. Of course, this resulted in Izuku having a lot less time to spend with her son, which tore her apart on the inside. Izuku walked up to her door and opened it, walking past the doorway. She walked past the kitchen and she walked past her son sitting next to a girl she didn't know. Wait a minute. Izuku backed up to see that the girl was in fact not an illusion. Hello, grandmother. She said, giving her a bright smile. Thud, Mom. Grandmother. The next day. Izuku opened her eyes and saw daylight. What a strange dream. She thought. Izuku remembered it was Sunday. Her one day off, so she didn't have to be in a hurry. I should make Izuku some breakfast. Izuku got out of bed, which she strangely didn't remember climbing onto, and opened the door. Hello, grandmother, are you feeling better? Izuku's eyes widened as in front of her was the exact same girl from what she thought was her dream. Izuku and Sukue started at each other speechless until Izuku walked up to them. Oh, good morning, Mom. He said, looking nervously between the two. Izuku looked at Izuku with a baffled expression. Izuku. Who is this girl? And why is she calling me grandmother? Her name is Sukue, and the reason she's calling you grandmother. Well, because you are, Izuku said nervously, trying to figure out the best way to explain this. The realization that Izuku would have to introduce his mother to Sukue hit him like a brick wall back at the lab. It didn't help that Sukue insisted on calling him father, which was technically true, and calling his mother grandmother. What do you mean she is? Asked Izuku, who was now freaking out. Mom, please calm down. Izuku said, also starting to panic. She's an android. I created her, so that technically makes me her father, and that technically makes you her grandmother. The panic on Izuku's face was replaced by confusion. Izuku, what does any of them mean? Izuku sighed. This might take a while. One explanation later. Soyu Medea person, in a lab, Izuku said, trying to come to grips with what Izuku had told her. Well, to put it simply, yes. Izuku verified. It was funny. Only a few days ago Izuku had been worrying about never having grandchildren. Now here she was with an already teenage granddaughter right in front of her. Izuku, why didn't you tell me about this? Izuku asked her, panic returning. I'm too young to a grandmother. Well, you were so busy I didn't want to bother you. Izuku lied. In truth, he knew his mother would try and stop him. Especially if she found out he had been working with such shady people. Sukue frowned as her built-in lie detector went off, telling her about her father's deception. She wondered why her father would lie about this. The aging, she didn't know anything about her creation herself. She decided she would ask him about it later, as she trusted her father enough not to expose his lie. Still, Izuku, why did you make her in the first place? Izuku asked. Well, because I thought it would be fun. Izuku lied once more. He hated lying to his mother, but if she knew the real reason, she would likely blame herself for his loneliness. You thought making me an early grandmother would be fun? Izuku asked, now brandishing the trademark Midoriya tears. Grandmother. Do you dislike me? Sukue asked sadly. Izuku looked at Suki's sad expression and felt her motherly, or in this case grandmotherly, instincts kick in. No. Of course not, dear, it's just strange to think I have granddaughter. But you're here, so as your grandmother I try to show you all the care you deserve. Inko said. Sukue's expression immediately brightened and without hesitation, she hugged Inko tightly. Inko smiled and hugged back. Looks like I have a granddaughter now. She still wasn't used to the idea and she was probably going to need to talk to Izuku later when Sukue wasn't around, but for now, she would just enjoy having a new member of the family. Izuku took a sigh of relief. This went better than he had expected. Father, would you like to join us? Sukue asked, opening her arm to allow Izuku to join the hug. Inko did the same and motioned for Izuku to join them. Izuku did so and the Midoriya family engaged in a group hug. Izuku smiled as a tear went down his cheek. It was all worth it. Just for this. Later that night, Inko had gone to bed. She had to wake up for work the next morning, so she needed the rest. However, Izuku and Sukue realized that there was a problem. There was only one bed. You see, while Sukue did not actually need to sleep, it did help her process data by shutting down unneeded functions until she woke up. She was programmed to always sleep for 8 hours unless something triggered her wake-up protocols, like a loud noise, sudden force, or someone calling her name. Izuku was offered the bed in his room to Sukue as he wanted her to be comfortable. Sukue could feel things like comfort due to her sensors, which sent information like smell, taste, and feeling to her head and thus allowed her to feel it, in the same way normal humans do. However, it was dulled a bit due to the artificial skin, so she could only experience about half as much feeling as a normal human. Izuku also did not program the sensors to detect pain, so she could not feel pain. However, she had a different idea and picked up Izuku, threw him into the bed, got in and held Izuku down with a hug, making sure he could not escape. Izuku struggled, trying desperately to escape but to no avail. Eventually, Izuku stopped and went to bed. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the ruins of the Yakuza's base laid Kai Chisaki. Overhaul. His base in ruins, his followers slaughtered, and his quirk gone, he knew he was done. He should have never allowed that man into his base. He was the stuff of myths. A real-life boogeyman. And he had just allowed him into his home. I must thank you, Overhaul. Overhaul looked up at the man that had ruined him. All for one. The large faceless man stood before him carrying what was his. Eri. Thanks to you I now have a way to accomplish my goals without compromise. All for One said, holding up the unconscious girl. Earlier that day All for One came to the Yakuza saying that he had a proposition that could benefit both of them. It only took one look at All for One's broken, faceless body to figure out what he wanted. The two had gotten into negotiations when suddenly Eri came running into the room in one of her normally fruitless escape attempts. All for One turned his head towards her, and after a few seconds, he smiled. And now Overhaul was here. Dying. However, I'm afraid that I no longer have use for you. And when I kill her tormentors, I'm sure the girl will be as trusting of me as I need her to be. He said. What are you planning? Overhaul asked. He might as well learn the reason he was going to die. All for One laughed. My retirement plan, of course. You see, I used to have it all planned out, however, a recent development has caused me to change those plans, and you were going to be an essential part of them. But now that I have this girl, that is no longer the case. It's strange how things have just been going my way recently. They'll never let you, even if you run to the ends of the earth. The heroes will find you. Overhaul said. All for One just laughed once more. I never knew you were such an avid believer in heroes, Overhaul. Or perhaps it's just your wishful thinking. Either way, I think we are done here. All for One aimed his palm at Overhaul. Goodbye. Boom. The next day. Eri opened her eyes. What happened? She thought. She had tried to escape and ran into a room with Overhaul and a strange man. The man smiled at her, and then she woke up here. You're awake. Eri jumped and turned her head to the source of the voice. It was a boy who looked to be around her age, with messy white hair and red eyes. He was sitting on a chair next to her giving her an excited look. Eri crawled backward on her bed, but when she tried to move she felt a pain in her back. The boy grabbed the girl and gave her a concerned look. "Don't move too much. Your big brother said you'll reopen your wounds," the boy said. Eri looked at the boy confused and scared. Where am I? Who are you?" The boy frowned. "Don't be scared. My name is Yuao Otoko. First name pronounced Yoi and the second name is pronounced Otokeo, but just call me Yua. You're at my house. My brother saved you from some bad people and took care of your injuries." "Saved me from bad people? Does that mean Overhaul is gone?" Hope swelled in Eri's chest. She should know better than to hope. After all, hope had only ever led to disappointment for Eri. But if this boy was here, maybe it was true. The feeling of hope started to overwhelm Eri and she started to cry. Her horn grew and a green glow covered her. Yua immediately went to comfort the crying girl by hugging her. Eri was shocked at this. The way he held her. It wasn't like anyone else had. It was gentle and kind. Eri let herself lean into the hug, completely forgetting about her quirk which didn't seem to be affecting the boy. For the first time since Eri could remember she was allowed to cry. After a few minutes, Eri's tears turned to sniffles. Her horn had receded into her head and the glow was gone. Well, that was touching. Eri and Yua looked toward the sound of the voice and found All for One staring back at them. Except he looked very different. No longer was he a faceless, with a body ruined by battle. No, now he was a large well-dressed man, with white hair and red eyes. All for One had been restored to perfect health. Eri looked at the man and recognized his suit. It was the man who was with Overhaul. "Aku," Yua said. "You're back." Yua ran up to his brother, who bent down to allow his younger sibling to hug him. The two embraced. All for One looked at Eri who was giving him a fearful look. "Hello, Eri, my name is Aku Otoko. But please call me All for One." All for One said, separating from his brother and walking over to the scared child. "I saved you from those awful Yakuza, however in the fight they injured your back." This was a lie. In truth, All for One used his forced quirk activation quirk on her in order to restore himself, injuring her back the process. "But you don't need to worry about them anymore," All for One reassured. "The heroes arrested them and they will never be able to hurt you again." "And never?" Eri asked, her voice trembling with all sorts of emotions. Happiness, disbelief, and hope the most prominent among them. All for One chuckled and patted Eri on the head. "Never." With this a few more tears fell from Eri's eyes as she leaned over and hugged All for One. Thank you." Finally, her nightmare had ended. Later at the doctor's lab. All for One emerged from a warp gate into the laboratory to see the doctor looking at the news. "I thought you were going to work with Overhaul." The doctor said the unasked question is why he killed the Yakuza. "I was, however, I found a better option." All for One said. "Oh. And what would that be?" the doctor asked. The Yakuza were keeping a child captive. A young girl named Eri. All for One explained. Her quirk allows her to turn back a person's biological clock. It is quite powerful. The doctor laughed. "I can see that. You look better than you have in years." All for One joined in on the laughter. "I suppose so. So what are you going to do with the girl?" the doctor asked. "If you don't have any plans for her, then I wouldn't mind taking her. The things I could do with a quirk like hers." All for One shook his head. "My apologies. I plan to keep her around. After all, she and Yua have gotten quite attached and it's a good idea to guarantee that he always has at least one friend. After all, his appearance leaves him a target for social ostracization and I would rather he not be miserable for the rest of eternity." "Ah yes. Children can be quite cruel, can't they? The doctor said. Yes. Although I suppose I should be thankful for that. All for one pondered. After all, if it weren't for that feeling of loneliness children get when they are alone, then Midoriya may have never started on his project and I may have never my brother back. True. The doctor said. Speaking of Midoriya, what do you plan to do with him? He is far too dangerous to dash. I don't plan on doing anything to him. All for one said, interrupting the doctor. I need him in case something happens to you all. Didn't you take Overhaul's quirk? Could you not simply repair him with that? The doctor asked, knowing that if Overhaul was dead then there was no way All for one did not take his quirk. All for one shook his head again. Yes, however, I have no knowledge of how his body works. If say his arm is destroyed, then I will only be able to reattach it to his body rather than making it fully functional. I see. The doctor responded. So you need the boy alive. I will keep that in mind. However, what happens if Tamura goes after him? All for one grinned. I have a plan for that. Now shall we get to the reason I'm here? Yes, that. Are you truly sure you want to retire? Now that you have been restored you could kill All Might before he dash. All for one cut him off once more. No. I have tried to kill off the one for all users before they passed on the quirk, many times. However, somehow, someway they always persist. As a villain, I've had a good run. Many villains don't even get to retire, and until recently I had planned on being one of those villains. But now that's changed. I have my brother and I'll just go for my retirement now before something happens to mess it up. The doctor sighed. Well, are you sure about giving up that many quirks? All for one nodded. Once I give All for one to Tamura, my body won't be able to support having all these quirks inside me. However, I will be able to keep the ones I require, so it doesn't matter all that much. Well, if you're sure. The doctor said sadly. I'm going to miss you, old friend. All for one gave his signature smirk. NIU. The next day. Tamura looked in horror as his sensei lay dying. In all his years with him, he had never seen him on a bed. But it seemed like the wounds he had gotten from the fight with All Might all those years ago were now too much for him. Sensei. Please, you can't die. Don't leave me. Tamura cried. Tamura. All for one said in a weak voice. I'm sorry. But I can't hold on for much longer. All for one coughed and blood came out. Tamura. I have one last gift for you. All for one said. Before Tamura could ask what it was, he felt All for one's palm around his face. Suddenly a weird sensation filled Tamura as he felt something enter his body. And just like that, it was done. Sensei, what dash, Tamura? All for one said, cutting his protege off. I have given you my quirk. With it, I know you can achieve your goals. Sensei, Tamura said in disbelief. All for one coughed up some more blood. It's almost time. All for one said. Before I die I need you to promise me something. Tamura gave his teacher a determined look. One that All for one had rarely seen on him. Anything. There is a boy. With green hair. His name is Izuku Midoriya. He did me a great favor in the past. One I can never repay him for. You must promise me to never bring him harm. All for one explained. I promise. Tamura said. He had never heard of this boy before, but if his sensei wanted him unharmed then Tamura wouldn't lay a finger on him. All for one smiled. Good. Thank you, Tamura. I know you will make me proud. And with those last words All for one went limp and the heart monitor he had been attached to flatlined. Tamura held the hand of his MSTR with his pinkies not attached so he didn't disintegrate him. I promise you, sensei. I will make All Might pay. A few hours later. After Tamura had left, the only ones in the room were Kurogiri and the seemingly dead body of All for one. seemingly being the keyword. After a few minutes, Kurojairi spoke. I believe he is gone. All for one rose from the table with a yawn. Finally. I was worried he was going to take my hands with him. It would not be hard to picture, Kurojairi said. All for one detached himself from the fake life support machines and took off the face mask he had been using to make it look like he was still injured. Have Yua and Eri been moved to the location? All for one asked. Of course, Kurojairi said. Did you send the letter? All for one asked, reaching into his pocket. All Might should be reading it by morning, Kurojairi answered. Good. Replied All for one. Then this is where we part ways, my friend. Kurojairi bowed. It had been an honor. All for one took out a needle from his pocket and injected Kurojairi with it. Kurojairi reacted violently, his body spasming for a few seconds before he got his bearings. Trigger. The place All for one needed to go was far past the range Kurojairi was capable of, so the drag was required. And with that, Kurojairi opened a warp gate, far, far away from here. All for one stepped through the warp gate and found himself in a farmhouse. The warp gate closed behind him, and with that, All for one was officially retired. Izuku sighed. He had just finished hacking Sukue into the system. The Midoriyas were not exactly a notable family. As far as the government was concerned, they were just an average family. So it was safe to say no one would notice if they suddenly gained a new family member. Of course, she was registered as his sister, much to her annoyance, because someone might notice if it was listed that a 15-year-old was listed as the daughter of another 15 years old. Which was another problem. Sukue would not stop calling him father. According to her, calling him anything else felt uncomfortable. Which would be a problem if they tried to register the normal way. Hence the hacking. Izuku looked at the clock. It was almost time for school. Sukue had been registered as being homeschooled, which if anyone actually looked into the Midoriyas, they would be able to figure out something was up, considering Inko's work schedule is packed and Izuku's father was dead, so no one would be able to homeschool Sukue. But once again, no one cared. For once Izuku was glad he was unnoticeable. Izuku got his book bag and met Sukue at the door. Father, you are heading to school, yes? Sukue asked. Yes. Is there something you wanted? Izuku asked, finding it strange she was just standing by the door. I would like to walk with you, Sukue said. I am aware I cannot enter the school building due to me not being enrolled. However, I would like to accompany you to the building. Izuku smiled. This is exactly what he wanted. He had always looked at pairs and groups of friends walking to and from school, and his feeling of loneliness grew. Of course. Izuku said. Sukue smiled back. Then it would be best to leave at this time. Sukue pulled 2 brown bags. I may not have been programmed with the knowledge of cooking, however I believe I have discovered the basics of the sandwich. Izuku honestly found it adorable how excited she was about making a sandwich. Wait. Izuku noticed something. There are 2 bags. Sukue nodded. Yes. One for your breakfast and one for lunch. Izuku's heart melted. Even if it was just a sandwich, someone made food. For him. Father, we had better leave at this time, Sukue said, using her built-in clock to tell the time. I intend to take the longer route, so if we do not leave within the next few minutes then you will be late. Oh sorry, let's engage. Izuku was interpreted by Sukue shoving a sandwich into his mouth. No time. She said before taking Izuku's hand, dragging him out the door. Later, like Sukue said, she and he had taken the long way to school, and for good reason. The longer route involved them going through a park, which was something Sukue had wanted to do since her creation. If they were not in such a hurry, it would have been nice to stop and look at all the flowers, trees, and birds going by. It was a very pleasant sight. I wonder why I stopped going this route. Izuku thought to himself. I mean, I know it's longer, but, Deku. Oh yes, it's why. Izuku and Sukue turned around to see none other than Bakugo Katsuki. "What the hell did I tell you about coming this way, Deku?" Bakugo snarled, his two goons snickering at his side. Deku struggled for an explanation. What exactly is the issue with us going this way?" Sukue asked, cutting Izuku off. Sukue knew who Bakugo was. However, her memories of him were incomplete. All the memories of him she had been exposed to stopped after they reached the age of 4. "The issue?" Bakugo snarled. "The issue is that I don't want to see Deku's face any longer than I have to." Sukue was taken aback. She knew that people changed over the years, but this was just so different from what she had seen of him in her father's memories. "Why?" Sukue asked, trying to figure out how different he was from the memories she had of him. "What the F is with all these stupid questions?" Bakugo said. "Why the hell would anyone want to look at Deku? I already have to put up with having him in the same F class, like hell I'm gonna let him walk the same way I do." "Yeah," one of the goons said in the background. Bakugo got closer to Sukue. "Who the hell even are you?" "Deku's girlfriend." Sukue glared at him. "My name is Izuku Midoriya. I am his daughter." Everyone was silent. Izuku's face was in his hand as he tried in vain to hide his embarrassment. The two goons were looking rapidly between the two, and Bakugo was frozen, his expression stuck in a WTF look. "I could explain," Sukue thought. But it appears that Bakugo Katsuki has turned into what is widely referred to as an but. There is a 90% chance that not explaining the situation will make Bakugo Katsuki angry. Path selected. With that, Sukue picked up her father. "Sukue. What are you doing?" Izuku asked, really confused and startled by suddenly being hoisted up. Sukue gave no answer as she ran off, leaving Bakugo and his goons in the dust. "What the F just happened?" said one of the goons. "Could Deku really have a daughter?" said the other goon. "No way, she looks like she's his age," said the first goon. "Yeah, but quirks can do some weird SHT, man," said goon 2. "Who knows, maybe Deku had SEC with someone with some kind of time quirk. I mean, he has been pretty hard to find recently, maybe dash." "Shut up," Bakugo screamed. The two goons back away in fear. "You stupid assholes. Do you really think anyone would be desperate enough to F Deku?" Bakugo said. "Oh. Yeah, that doesn't add up," the first goon said. "But then why the hell did she say she was his daughter?" the other goon said. Bakugo glared at the two. "I don't know. But I'm gonna find out." Later, while Izuku's in school, Sukue walked through the park with a starstruck look on her face. Her father had shown her images and videos of things like birds and trees while her subconsciousness, and had even programmed what they would smell and feel like, but to see them in person, it was just better. Perhaps it was because her consciousness was now fully formed, or perhaps it was something else, but for whatever reason Sukue loved looking trees shake in the wind, the birds giving food to their young, and the squirrels scurrying around looking for food. She loved the life around her. Suddenly Sukue's sensors picked up the sounds of a little girl in distress. Sukue headed towards the source of the sound to find a little girl trying to climb a tree. Presumably to get the cat that seemed to be stuck. The girl had tears in her eyes as she slid down the tree once more. "I see," Sukue thought. Situation analyzed. Solution found. With that, Sukue ran at the tree and jumped, grabbing the cat. She then performed a somersault as she landed on her feet, the cat safely in her arms. She turned back to the girl, who was looking at her in amazement. She walked up to the girl and held the cat out toward her. Sukue leaned down and handed the girl her cat back. "Here you go." "Wow," the girl said with stars in her eyes. "Thank you." The girl heard her parents calling her and ran off, waving goodbye to Sukue, who waved back with a smile. "What is this feeling?" Sukue wondered. Analysis points to the feeling being pride. Saving that cat and seeing that girl so happy. It made her feel amazing. What was almost as good was the look the girl had in her eyes. That starry-eyed look made Sukue feel like she was the coolest person in the world. I mean, if I think about it, I am pretty amazing. Sukue thought to herself. I am the first fully sentient android made to save lives and kick butt after all. Sukue put her hands on her hips and smirked. Father truly is the greatest mind on earth and lady. Sukue looked to the side to see a young boy looking at her strangely. Are you okay? You just standing weirdly and yelling things at no one. Yelling. I could have sworn I had kept that monologue exclusive to the confines of my head. Could this be a glitch? She wondered. I will have to ask father about this. I am fine, little boy, Sukue said. It was simply a possible programming error. The boy tilted his head in confusion. You're a weird lady. Later after school. Izuku packed up as quickly as he could. Normally Izuku ended up leaving a little later than everyone else. However, today he was eager to get as far away from Bakugo as he could. He knew that he would be extremely set off after what happened in the park, and this idea was enforced by the fact that when Bakugo entered the classroom he gave Izuku a look that almost made him faint on the spot. However, strangely enough, Bakugo was nowhere to be seen at the end of class. Izuku pondered this as he walked to the exit. I wonder where Kaken went. Boom! Izuku flinched. He knew that sound all too well. The sound of an explosion. And he knew better than to hope it was some kind of accident. Despite the fact that it was illegal to use your quirk in public, people tended to do it anyway. No one really got in trouble when they used their quirk in minor or ignorable fashion. It was kind of like jaywalking or speeding. So long as you didn't commit some form of villainy of vigilantism, people would just walk past a person casually using their quirk. Of course, this was not the case for people with powerful quirks. They only ever get reported if a hero is around usually. A guy with a strong quirk could beat a guy up in front of a crowd, and so long as none of them were heroes, then no one would do anything. This was because of three things. 1. They didn't want to be a target. 2. They expect the heroes to do something about it. And 3. They just don't care. This happened in schools too. Teachers and principals wanting to make their schools look better by having some students with strong quirks go on to hero schools, so they ignore a lot of things kids with strong quirks do. Like bullying and fighting. Izuku had suffered because of this, and it seems like whoever was unfortunate enough to be noticed by Bakugo was suffering it too. Izuku sighed. He couldn't allow this. Time to get beat up again. Izuku thought to himself as he ran to the main entrance. When Izuku got there, his jaw dropped at what he saw. Sukue was facing off against Bakugo, who had some scrapes and bruises on him and was kneeling down. I'm afraid you stand no chance, Katsuki Bakugo, Sukue said in a surprisingly overdramatic fashion. Father has given me all of your combat data. Including all of your attack and pursuit techniques. Will you stop calling that quirkless bstrd your father? Bakugo screamed. Who the F are you? Sukue smirked and put her hand on her hips. I am the ultimate advancement in human civilization. I am the peak technological achievement. I am the ultimate hero come to save the day from evildoers. She pointed a finger at Bakugo in dramatic fashion. I am Izuku Midoriya. Future #1 hero. No one said a word as they were all too shocked to even move. Partially from the fact that someone actually stood up to Bakugo, and partially due to her over-the-top introduction. Where the heck did that come from? Izuku was the most shocked out of anyone here. Bakugo was the first to speak. All right, that's it. Bakugo burst forward and prepared for his usual method of attack. Just as Sukue went to counter, Bakugo let off an explosion to change his trajectory. Target has changed course. Analyzing trajectory and comparing it to known methods of attack employed by subject Katsuki Bakugo. Conclusion: the target will attempt to attack from behind. Initiating preemptive attack. Just as Bakugo had positioned himself behind her, Sukue punched him in the face, launching him across the entrance. Bakugo slowly got up and readied himself to attack again. Kaken, stop! Izuku yelled, running in between the two. Sukue smiled. Father. You're here. Good, I have a few questions I would like to ask you. Later, Izuku said before looking back at Bakugo. Kaken, I will explain everything. I just need to do it someplace more private. Bakugo glared at him for a minute before saying. Fine. Extras. F off. Almost instantly all the students that had gathered to watch the fight scattered like they were running for their lives. After everyone left, Izuku spoke. Can we talk at your house? I think I should probably explain this to Aunt Mitsuki too. Bakugo scowled. On one hand, he didn't want to have to deal with the hag and Deku at the same time. But on the other hand, if the hag saw Sukue call Deku father, then she would probably nag him for an explanation, and F that. Fine, Bakugo said. But don't walk too close to me. I don't want people thinking I know you. Later at Bakugo's house. Izuku. It's been a while, said Mitsuki Bakugo. Bakugo, Sukue, and Izuku were standing on the doorstep of the Bakugo's house with Mitsuki greeting them. And who's this? Mitsuki asked, looking at Sukue. Izuku, did you get a girlfriend? Has stopped responding. The poor boy's face turned redder than ever as he emitted a bunch of high-pitched noises that sounded like he was attempting to speak but simply couldn't. No, Sukue said simply. I am his daughter. Mitsuki started at her for half a minute before turning to Izuku. Explain. That's what they're here to do, Bakugo said. Now let us in, it's F cold. They all sat down in the living room on the two couches. Izuku and Sukue on one couch. And Mitsuki and Bakugo on the other. So. Izuku started. You know how I have no friends. Mitsuku frowned. Yeah. Assholes can't get over your quirklessness. F airs. Analyzation of the situation shows another possible reason for father's lack of friends. Sukue chimed in. Katsuki Bakugo seems to have a large amount of influence at the school and seems to bully father to some extent. Therefore it's possible that because of this people avoid father in order to make themselves targets. She figured all that out in just one day. Izuku though. He was completely flabbergasted. How well did I program her? Oh really, Mitsuki said, glaring at her son. Smack, F, Bakugo yelled as he held the back of his head. When they leave, you and I are gonna talk, Mitsuki said, a dangerously low tone. Bakugo swiftly regretted letting Izuku and Sukue follow him home. Sukue smiled. It seems that my data on Mitsuki Bakugo is not as outdated as her son's. Izuku regained her composure and spoke up. Be back to what I was saying. I got really lonely. So I made myself some company. Literally. The two Bakugos gave him confused looks and Izuku realized he would need to clarify. Maybe it would be better to show you what I mean, Izuku said before turning to Sukue. Suddenly Sukue's arm opened up, revealing the metallic part beneath it. Both Mitsuki's and Bakugo's eyes were as wide as dinner plates when they saw this. Wait, so she's AF robot? Bakugo shouted. Android. Sukue corrected. Well, technically she's a gynoid, but android sounds cooler, Izuku said. Mitsuki got up and took a close look at Sukue. She looks so live though. Well, she is alive. Izuku clarified. She the world's first fully sentient android. She's just as alive as anyone. How the F did you do that? Mitsuki asked in shock. Well, it's complicated. But to put it simply, I just took a pair of brain waves and used them as a baseline for her program to make completely new brain waves. Mitsuki gave him another confused look before shaking her head and leaning back on the couch. I have no idea what any of that means and I have a feeling I'll never understand any of it, but hey, good for you. At least you have a friend now. Or daughter, I guess. Father. I thought only your brain waves were used in my creation. Yet you said that a pair of brainwaves was used. Who was the other person? Sukue asked. CRP. Izuku thought to himself. I shouldn't have said that. Izuku stuttered. I'll tell you later. Father, you are aware you gave me a lie detector? Right. Sukue asked. I forgot about that. Izuku was starting to sweat. If he told Sukue, then she would wonder how he got Bakugo's brain waves, and then he would have to tell her about All for One. And Izuku really did not want anyone to know about his collaboration with that man. He was basically the embodiment of shady. First we should probably get your arm out of repair mode, Izuku said. Sukue looked down at her opened-up arm. I didn't even know I had a repair mode. How many things about myself do I not know? 6973, Izuku said, ignoring her question. Sukue looked down at her arm, but nothing happens. It remained in repair mode. Whoops. Izuku said. I said the wrong code. In an instant, Sukue's arm closed up and returned to its normal state. Sorry about that, Izuku said. Really, Sukue, I will tell you later. Your lie detector must be malfunctioning. Sukue felt that something was off. It felt like her father was lying, but her lie detector was not going off. So he must be telling the truth. Right. Little did she know that when Izuku accidentally said the wrong code, what he really did was deactivate her lie detector. Izuku had a bunch of codes to deactivate or reactivate certain parts of Sukue, all of which would only respond to his voice. Of course, there were also certain things Izuku could not deactivate, like her fusion reactor or her brainwave processor. Anyway, Izuku said in a somewhat nervous tone. I just wanted to tell you about her so you didn't get confused. We should be going now, after I wouldn't want Mom to get upset. Izuku grabbed Sukue by the hand and ran out of the Bakugo's house at speeds even Katsuki had never seen him run. After a few minutes, Mitsuki spoke. Something's not right. I don't think I've ever seen him act so shifty. Yeah. It's like he was hiding something. Bakugo added. Mitsuki shook her head. Whatever it is, it's probably best to just let it go. After all, it's Izuku. Whatever he's doing, I'm sure he would never dream of hurting someone. Meanwhile, with All Might, Toshinori Yagi was searching through his mail when he saw something that made his heart stop. A letter with the words from All for One to All Might. All Might immediately dropped all the other papers and shakily opened the letter. Sukue couldn't be more excited. After 2 months of testing and running simulations, today was finally the day of the UA entrance exam. Are you ready? Izuku asked her as they walked to the gates of UA. Izuku was going to take the support course exam, so of course, the two walked there together. Even if Izuku's exam wasn't for another hour after the hero exam. Of course, father. Sukue said. All systems are fully operational and ready for combat. All data on the entrance exam has been fully analyzed. Awesomeness level at 1000%. Sukue stuck a confident pose. I am ready to be number one. Did she really say awesomeness levels? Izuku thought to himself. Unfortunately, this distraction caused him to not see a rock in his path and trip. Sukue was about to act when she saw someone rush past her. Izuku never hit the ground and instead found himself floating above the ground. Ha! Izuku said. Suddenly he found himself being lifted upright. Face to face with a girl. A very pretty girl. Izuku's face turned crimson and his heart started beating at speeds that would put Ingenium to shame. Are you okay? The girl asked, concern showing on her face. Ah. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Izuku was freaking out hard. The girl then came closer. You look really red, are you sick? Unfortunately, she had gotten a bit too close for Izuku to handle, and so the boy collapsed onto the floor unconscious. What? Yelled the no extremely confused girl. Father! Sukue shouted as she ran to her creator's aid. Wait, what? Asked the now even more confused girl. After confirming that her father was all right, Sukue faced the girl. I apologize. She said. Father is not quite adept at social interactions. He is especially bad at speaking to members of the opposite section. Okay. The girl said, still not sure what exactly was happening. Why did you call him father though? Because he is my father, Sukue answered. But he looks like he's 15. The girl said. And you look like you're 15. Yes, Sukue responded. There was a pause as the girl tried to comprehend the situation. Well, he need to go now, bye. The girl said, walking away from the two. What an interesting quirk she had. Sukue thought to herself, hey. Sukue turned around to see Bakugo walking up behind them. What the F happened to him? He asked, looking at Izuku. He talked to a girl, Sukue answered. There was a short pause before Bakugo just walked away. I think that may be the nicest interaction I've had with him. Sukue thought to herself. Suddenly she realized something. The test is going to start soon. I'd better get father to a teacher so they can take him to the nurse or something. With that, Sukue picked up Izuku and ran off to find a teacher. After a few minutes, she found Midnight directing students to the exam room. Sukue yelled to get the teacher's attention. Midnight looked over to see Sukue holding the still unconscious Izuku. She walked over to her and asked. What happened? He talked to a girl, Sukue answered. Midnight cringed. Yikes. Poor kid probably hasn't talked much to girls. Sukue shook her head. He hasn't talked much to anyone really. Other than me, that is. Oh, are you his friend or sister or something? Midnight asked. I am his daughter, Sukue answered. There was yet another pause as Midnight processed this unexpected answer. I am sorry, could you repeat that? Midnight asked, wondering if what she had was correct. I am his daughter, Sukue repeated. He is my creator and therefore my father. It is very simple. Wait. What do you mean? Creator. Midnight asked. Like, are you part of his quirk or did he use his quirk to create you? Sukue shook her head. No, father is quirkless. Perhaps it would be easier if I introduced myself. Suddenly Sukue put her hands to her hips and gave Midnight a proud smile. I am Izuku Midoriya. The first sentient android. And this is my father. The one who created me. Izuku Midoriya. No one said anything as Midnight as well as every other student around her gave her strange and confused looks. Sukue frowned. Do you not believe me? Here, let me show you. Sukue reached for the back of her head. Specifically for the small slit in her artificial skin before opening it and revealing her metallic face to everyone around. Tada! She said. A few hours later. Izuku slowly and groggily opened his eyes a little. Wah! What happened? Hello, Midoriya. A voice said. Izuku looked up to see Principal Nizu himself sitting on the opposite end of a desk. Izuku's eyes shot fully open and he jerked upright. Principal Nizu. He nodded. Yep, that's me. So we heard that you created sentient life. Izuku's eyes somehow got even wider. How did you dash, she told us. Said a man Izuku didn't recognize. My name is Naomasa Tsukachi. I've been brought in to make sure you're telling the truth. My quirk makes me a human lie detector, so lying won't work. What is it with me and lie detectors? Izuku thought to himself. And why did Sukue tell them? I specifically told her to keep it a secret. So. Izuku Midoriya. Nizu said, regaining the boy's attention. Our files say that Sukue Midoriya was adopted by your mother and was homeschooled. However, looking at your mother's work schedule, that would be impossible. Now she has revealed herself to be an android and says you are her creator. Is this true? Izuku had no choice. With Naomasa here, lying was futile. Yes. He's telling the truth, Naomasa said with wide eyes. He almost didn't believe it. A 15-year-old boy creates life. It just sounded so bizarre. Well then, first I would like to congratulate you on this amazing scientific achievement, Nizu said. And next I would like to ask you a few more questions. Izuku gulped. Thank you, and I figured as much. First. Why did you create her in the first place? Nizu asked. Izuku looked away sheepishly and muttered something. Please speak up, Nizu said. Because I was lonely, Izuku admitted. One of the many reasons Izuku wanted to keep this a secret was because of how pathetic it sounded. He couldn't make friends, so he had to make one himself. Naomasa frowned. It was a pretty sad answer. One that said a lot about Izuku and the life he lived, the fact that he was quirkless further painting a picture in the mind of the two adults about what his life was like. I see, Nizu said. Next question. Where did you get the resources to create her? She allowed us to analyze her, and while we were unable to look at her inner mechanisms, we can tell the materials and parts used in her creation would not have been available to someone who wasn't incredibly wealthy. Izuku started to sweat. He knew he probably wasn't getting out of here without telling them about All for One, but he had still held hope that he would be able to worm his way out of it. Well, you see, Izuku stuttered, trying to think of an answer. Someone showed up and offered me the resources. Naomasa gave the kid a suspicious look. You're telling the truth, but you're obviously hiding something. Kid, you know you're not getting out of this, just tell us everything. The pressure was too much. Izuku cracked. When I was looking for parts, a portal seeked me up and I met this man. He said his name was All for One. The statement sent shock throughout the room. Nizu even lost his ever-present smile. Naomasa looked at Nizu and the two nodded. Give us a moment, Nizu said. He and Naomasa walked outside his office. We need to call All Might, Nizu said. Half an hour later. Nizu, Naomasa, you said I was needed for something. All Might said as he walked into the office. Then he spotted Izuku and freaked out slightly. Hello, there, young man. Hello, Izuku said. Yagi, this is Izuku Midoriya, Nizu said, introducing the two. He is responsible for creating the world's first sentient android. Oh. All Might said. That's good. You have no idea what that means to you? Naomasa asked. Not at all. All Might admitted. He made a robot that's alive. Nizu simplified. OOH. All Might said, now giving the appropriate reaction. That's amazing. Yes, it's a miraculous achievement, Nizu said, praising the boy. However, it is also a suspicious one. Most suspiciously was how he managed to get his hands on the materials required to pull off such a feat. Midoriya, would you mind repeating what you said to Yagi? Izuku faced the skeleton like a man with fear written across his face. I was looking for parts when a portal showed up and swallowed me. After that, I met a man who said he would give me the parts one needed. His name was All for One. All Might's heart skipped a beat. What? All for One, Izuku repeated. He was a large man whose face was damaged. To the point where he basically didn't have one. He always had life support machines attached to him and an oxygen mask. He wore a dark suit and never seemed to change out of it. Dread filled All Might at the description. Last time he fought All for One, he caved the villain's head in. And all that resulted in was him not having a face. And he was still wearing that F-suit. Were you aware that he was a villain? Naomasa asked. Izuku looked down, uncomfortable at being the center of attention. No. But I did suspect he was. And you continued to work with him despite that? Nizu asked. Tears started rolling down the boy's eyes as the pressure and attention was rapidly overwhelming him. I didn't have a choice. Do you know how impossible it is to make friends when you're quirkless? And my mom has to work 2 jobs so that way we can stay afloat money-wise. It was either work with him and make the androids or be alone for the rest of my life. Izuku was crying now. He really didn't want to work with All for One, but he justified it to himself by reminding himself that he didn't know if All for One was a villain, making excuses for his shifty behavior and evil laugh. But now here he was with all his suspicions confirmed, and Izuku felt guilty as hell. All Might gave the boy a look of pity. He knew exactly how hard it was to make friends when you're quirkless. All Might himself wasn't able to make any friends until Nana passed down one for all onto him. But while the word quirkless caught All Might's attention, there was another word that caught Nizu's attention. But before he could ask questions about it, he would have to calm down the boy first. Nizu pulled out a box of tissues and put them in front of the boy. It's okay, Midoriya. You had no idea that All for One was a villain, seeing as he is a government secret and listed as officially dead. You will not be arrested or anything like that. We just want information. This managed to calm Izuku down, if only slightly. He took the tissues and wiped away most of the tears and snot that had run down in his eyes and nose. I'm sorry, Izuku said. But deep down I did know that he was a villain. And legally, since All for One is not publicly known, even if you did work with him, you still technically have not broken the law so long as you didn't perform any illegal actions yourself. Did you perform any illegal actions? And not to my knowledge. Izuku stuttered. But then you're fine, Nizu said, cutting him off. You're not in any trouble, kid. But this feels wrong. Izuku yelled. I worked with a villain. I shouldn't just be able to get away with it. He felt a hand on his shoulder and he looked up to see All Might looking down at him. Young Midoriya. By answering our questions you could give us information that could lead to the dismantling of his plans. That is more than enough to make up for working with him. We questioned the young lady you created, Nizu said. She seems like a fine future hero that could save a lot of lives. Even if she is a result of you working with All for One, it is an undoubtedly positive thing. Izuku didn't know what to say, so he just cried some more. After 15 minutes Izuku managed to stop crying. I want to ask you some more questions, Nizu said. Will you be able to answer them, or do you need a few more minutes? Izuku sniffed. I'm fine. Thank you. Alright. Now I noticed earlier you said androids. As in plural. Nizu pointed out. Izuku nodded. Yes. All for One said he would give me the materials and resources I needed to build Sukue if I built him an android as well. What? All Might gasped. Can you tell us more about the android you made him? Nizu asked. Izuku nodded. He had a lot of requests for how he wanted it to look. He wanted it to have messy white hair, pale skin, and red eyes. He also wanted it to be a child somewhere between 9 and 11. Messy white hair, pale skin, and red eyes. Why does that sound familiar? All Might wondered. Also, I made Sukue by using other people's brain waves as a baseline to form new brain waves, making them a whole new person, Izuku explained. But All for One wanted something different for his android. He asked me to use just those brainwaves, making it a copy of whoever they got the brainwaves from. But not only that, when I looked at the brainwaves I found that they were cut off at a certain point. So it seems All for One wanted you to recreate a person. Nizu theorized. And he wanted that person to only remember up to a certain point, perhaps only up to where they were a child. But why? Naomasa asked. Did you give this android any weapons? Izuku shook his head. No. Strangely enough, he asked specifically that he have no weapon systems whatsoever. It still has some super strength, but any pro hero would almost certainly be able to beat it. So if I had to guess, whoever he had me build had a strong sentimental connection to him. Suddenly it clicked. His brother. All Might yelled. Now he remembered why that description sounded familiar. The first user of One for All. He had seen him in a vision once and he matched that description exactly. It must be his brother. There isn't anyone else that monster could possibly have a connection to that strong enough to warrant going out of his way and revealing himself. I suppose that makes sense, Nizu said. Midoriya. When did you finish building these androids? About 2 months ago, Izuku answered. That's around the time All for One sent you that letter. Naomasa realized. You're right. All Might said. But why would he revive his brother so close to his death? Wait. Death. Izuku butt in. Well, I don't think he had much of a choice, Nizu said, ignoring Izuku completely. I don't think anyone but Izuku could basically revive the dead. I can't really revive the dead. Izuku butt in again. It's more like I created a copy of that person. Like a clone but made of metal. Also, what do you mean by close to his death? Yagi was sent a letter by All for One stating that he had just died. Naomasa. And what you said about his injuries makes that seem more believable. Wait, why did he give Mr. Yagi a letter? Izuku asked. There was a brief silence in the room before Nizu spoke up. Midoriya, could you wait a moment while we talk outside? The principal said. Sure. Izuku said. He felt like he was in way over his head. The adults left the room once more and stood outside of the office. What are we gonna tell him? All Might asked. Everything, Nizu said. The two looked at him like he was crazy. Nizu. Do you really want to tell all these important, dangerous secrets to a 15-year-old? Naomasa asked. That could make him a target. He created life. Nizu pointed out. He will never not be a target now. He also already knows about All for One, and I have a plan for him that would require him to know about these things. And what plan is that? All Might asked. Just trust me, Nizu said. The other two sighed. They hated when Nizu tried to be dramatic. Well, you're the one with the intelligence quirk, Naomasa said. The adults walked back into the room. Alright, Midoriya, we have some very important things to tell you, Nizu said. These things are to remain top secret at all times. You are not allowed to tell anyone about what you hear in this room today. Do you understand? Izuku gulped and nodded his head. What have I gotten myself into? What's taking so long? Sukue wondered as she waited on the couch at home. After she had delivered her brother to the heroes, she had been asked if they could analyze her. She said yes and had to go through hours of testing and questioning. Afterward, they put her through the UA entrance exam, except with just her participating. Then they just told her she was in. No waiting or suspense, not that she ever believed she would fail, they just told her she was in. That honestly didn't sit right with her. It was pretty obvious they were treating her differently because she was an android, which in hindsight it was pretty obvious that something like this would happen. But what else was she supposed to do? Keep it a secret as her father wanted. Sukue found that hiding her species, I guess you could call it, was a waste of time and effort. If she got significantly burned, then her fake skin was gone and she would be exposed. After the test, they sent her home. She protested, saying that she wanted to wait for her father, but they said it would be a while until they were done with him and insisted that she went home. Many hours later and her father had still yet to return, and Sukue was tempted to walk up to you and bang on the door. Suddenly the door opened and in walked her father. Why did you tell them? He yelled. Sukue shrugged. Trying to hide it is pointless. The minute my fake skin gets torn or burnt off, then everyone knows anyway. It just seemed like a lot of effort for something that ultimately won't matter. Oh. Izuku deflated. When she put it like that, it made what she did seem somewhat logical. Sukue noticed a briefcase in her father's hand. What's that? Izuku looked at the briefcase. This is a bunch of papers that me and Mom have to go through. Also my diploma. Wait, what? Sukue yelled in shock. Izuku sighed. Nizu said that me going through the support course would be a waste of everyone's time, seeing as I'm already so smart. So he put me in the support course and then immediately graduated me. Wow, Sukue said. I see why people say Nizu is so smart. It's about time you got the recognition you deserve. Izuku blushed. Sukue. I didn't really do anything worth recognition until I made you. The door opened again and Inko walked in. Oh. Hi, Mom. Izuku said. Inko gave an exhausted smile. Hello, Izuku, Sukue. Hello, grandmother, Sukue said. Mom, we need to talk, Izuku said. Inko yawned. Izuku, I'm really tired. Can't this wait until later? Izuku shook his head rapidly. No, Mom, this is really, really important. Does it have to do with those papers you were talking about? Sukue asked. Yes. Izuku said, opening up the briefcase. These are government papers that you and I need to sign so I can work for you. Oh, is that all? Inko said. She tiredly walked up to the table, pulled out a pen and signed the spots on the paper that said parent sign here. Good night, Inko said as she walked away. Mom, do you know what you just signed? Izuku asked. Inko didn't respond and just walked into her room. Izuku sighed. We'll just explain it to her in the morning. The next morning, after one explanation, I signed what? Inko screeched. It was a waiver allowing me to work at you, Izuku repeated. Because I'm still only 15 and the government wanted your permission before I could officially work at you, but Inko stuttered. You're too young to be Mom, I know you're concerned, but if you look right here, Izuku said, pointing to a spot on the contract. You'll see how much I'd be getting paid. Inko looked and after seeing the number her eyes widened. Oh my god. After this, you won't have to work 2 jobs. Izuku said excitedly. You won't have to work any job. But. Izuku. The contract says you'll be an engineer. What does that involve? Inko asked. Izuku cringed. I can't tell you. Why? Inko asked. Because it involves a lot of top secret things that I will never be allowed to tell you, Izuku explained. But let me just say this. I will be building stuff. That's really vague, Inko said. Are you really sure about this? Izuku nodded. Yes. And besides, I am a graduate now, so I need to find a job anyway. Inko looked hesitant, but she saw the determined look in her son's eye and knew she only had one choice. Inko sighed. Well, I already signed the paper. Izuku jumped for joy and then hugged his mother. Thank you. Inko smiled and hugged her son back. I have to go to work, honey. After all, I feel like I should quit in person. Izuku smiled as a few tears of joy dropped from his eyes. I have to go to you, and give them the papers. After the two separated, Inko left for work and Izuku was at the door. Father. Sukue said, getting his attention. Let me come with you. Izuku smiled. Okay. I don't think my job is gonna start today, so it should be fine. Later at Izuku and Sukue walked to the gates and found that Nizu was waiting for them. Good morning, Midoriya, Nizu said. Good morning, Principal Nizu. Izuku said. Nizu turned to Sukue. And good morning to you, Sukue. Hello, Sukue said. I hope your mother signed those papers, Nizu said. Izuku handed Nizu the briefcase. She did, and I added the list of materials and other things I'll need for the project. Nizu opened the case and looked through a bunch of papers. Good. We'll order the supplies immediately. Izuku smiled. Thank you. The sooner we get this done the better. That's right. Nizu said. If you know who is alive, God knows what he's doing. Meanwhile, with you know who. All for one side. Another easy day of farming. For most people, working a huge farm by yourself would be an almost impossible task, but for All for One, this was simple. He went back to the farmhouse. Yua and Eri were at school, so the only sounds in the large barn were the sounds of the farm animals and the wind. All for one side. To think. After all these years I would get a happy ending. I almost can't believe it. I half expect All Might to burst through the wall and ruin everything. The thought of All Might made All for One chuckle. I wish I could have seen the look on his face when he read that letter. The former villain used his telekinesis quirk to push Bucket underneath the cows and milk them using the same quirk. While he was doing that, the duplicates that he created that morning were planting seeds in the fields. All this while All for One was collecting eggs from the chickens. You know, this is a nice change of pace. He thought to himself. Doing one thing for so long gets boring after all. I wonder what I'll do after All Might and his compatriots have died and everyone forgets about me. Maybe I'll be a teacher or a doctor, or perhaps I'll go into the hero business myself. All for One had to keep himself from bursting into hysterical laughter so he wouldn't drop the eggs. As funny as that would be if I did that, I have no doubt you all would put on a cape and insist to be my sidekick. And like hell I'm allowing that. All for One had told his brother that he did indeed develop a quirk. He called it Metal Body, which made him stronger and more durable while also making him immortal. Unsurprisingly, he had bought it and spent the rest of the week making him regret telling him he had increased durability and strength. He would do stupid things like banging his head against walls, jumping off the top of the barn, and other things that made his older brother want to rip his hair out. Thank God for Eri though. After Yua almost set himself on fire, it only took one look at Eri crying hysterically for him to cut out his testing. I wonder if I could keep her alive forever. She has been rather useful. All for One pondered. Her quirk doesn't seem to work on herself, but perhaps I can find a way around that. She and Yua are quite attached. It would be strange if they developed romantic feelings for each other only for Eri to grow into an adult and Yua to stay a child. All for One shivered at the thought. Maybe I can have Midoriya turn her into a robot or something. Although if he doesn't know about me already, he certainly will soon. There's no way that walking bundle of nerves is keeping his collaboration with me a secret. Hopefully, Tamura will distract them so they don't pay me any attention. And even if they don't, I have this town to keep me protected. The town of Hitajichi was a nice little town. Small enough to the point where everyone knew each other's name, but big enough to be comfortable spacing-wise. While it was pretty remote, but it was still up to date technology-wise. It was a pleasant town with pleasant people. Innocent people. People who the heroes would want to keep safe. And if any heroes tried to pull any funny business, they would get one warning before he reduced the town to a crater. Yua should be durable enough to survive the blast so long as he wasn't directly hit by it, and he was sure that regardless of Midoriya's opinion of him, the boy would never allow someone as innocent as Yua to die and wound repair him. Her would lose Eri, but what could you do? Maybe her head would survive and he could convince Midoriya to make a robot duplicate of her. Although All for One was sure he wouldn't need to think about that. Any hero worth their salt would never risk that many lives, and any heroes that would All for One could take out without needing to blow up the town. All in all, it was a foolproof requirement plan. He had nothing to fear. A few hours later, All for One was slightly afraid. It had been 3 hours since school let out, but Yua and Eri had yet to return. All for One had a scanner quirk that allowed him to know the location of everyone in town. Everyone but Yua. Most likely due to the fact that he is a machine. Eri had been running around the town but all for one had no idea why or if Yua was with her. He sensed her coming back and crossed his fingers that Yua was with her. The two children walked through the barn door and all for one breathed a sigh of relief. "Where have you two been?" All for one demanded. "You're 3 hours late. Do you have any idea how concerned I was?" The two hung their heads. Yua in shame and Eri in fear. "Sorry, bro," Yua said. "I was helping out around the town and it took longer than I thought." All for one sighed. "Oh, course. How could I forget that heroic nature of his?" This same heroic nature had gotten the original Yua in plenty of trouble and didn't look like Midoriya programmed that out of him. Sorry." Eri strutted. The girl was always on guard around him. She knew that he was evil. He just eliminated this sinister aura that Eri knew she couldn't trust. She didn't dislike him, after all, he did save her from overhaul but she always got the feeling that at any moment he was going to eat her. All for one shook his head. "It's fine. Next time just tell me before you do something like this again." "Of course." Yua exclaimed. "Why yeah," Eri said. The former villain smiled. "Well, you two go upstairs. I'll call you when dinner is ready." Yua and Eri ran upstairs to their shared room. "Hey, Eri," Yua said. "You seemed kind of nervous. You okay?" "Why yeah." Eri stuttered. Yua frowned and walked over to her. "Hey. It's okay. Big bro might be scary sometimes both's cool. You don't need to worry and if he gets angry I'll take all the blame for whatever happens." Yua gave her a determined smile. Eri teared up a little bit. She still wasn't used to this. To someone being so nice to her. She hugged Yua and Yua hugged back. "I'll never let anyone hurt you again, Eri. I promise." Back with Izuku and Sukue. The two of them were preparing for bed. Inko had offered to get Sukue her own bed but Sukue said she would just sleep with her father, much to his embarrassment. "Sukue," Izuku said gaining her attention. "There is something I need to tell you." Sukue smiled. "At last some answers." "The other half of your brain waves they come from Kaken," Izuku revealed. Sukue's smile dropped. What? Why? WL Kaken had a lot of determination. And I admired that a lot, so when it came time to make your brainwaves I figured I might as well use some of his too. Izuku explained. Sukue was dumbstruck. She had no real expectation of who he got those brain waves from but she didn't think it would be that but. How? She yelled. How did you even get his brain waves? I doubt he would agree to something like that. Izuku started looking around nervously, avoiding eye contact. Well, you see I can't tell you that. Basically, all the information on your creation is top secret. Even to you. But that's bullshit. Sukue said. Why can't I know how I was created? Izuku sighed. Maybe because you're really bad at keeping secrets. Sukue wanted to protest but she couldn't really argue with that. Literally the only secret she had been asked to keep, she had told to basically everyone. The internet had exploded with news of a robot girl with green hair. There weren't any pictures but she doubted that anyone wouldn't recognize her as the one everyone was talking about. Ugh. Sukue groaned. All of this was so frustrating. I'm sorry for all the complicated stuff, Izuku said. It's pretty hard for me to comprehend. But it's important. Really important. Sukue just pouted but suddenly she realized something. Does that mean that he's my mom? Izuku went pale. No. No, 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 no. He is like an uncle or something. His contribution was really minor and could have been kept out for the most part. Please never call him that. Sukue gave a sigh of relief. Good. I would rather have literally anyone else be my mom. Then again, seeing how you are with girls, I doubt that will ever happen. Izuku turned red with embarrassment. Esukue. She rolled her eyes and went up to Izuku. Well, time for bed. Izuku found himself being picked up and thrown into the bed. Why didn't I see this coming? Sukue jumped in bed and wrapped her arms around her father's neck, making him struggle to breathe. Good night, father, Sukue said with a smug grin on her face. Well, it's still better than being alone. Sukue was bursting with energy. Figuratively, of course. If her power source was overloading, then Izuku would have had her stay home. Today would be her first day at UA. She would get to meet her classmates, learn about their quirks, and if she was lucky she might even get to spar with them. You're really not nervous at all? Izuku asked. The two had been walking to UA together and were nearly there. Only about a mile away. The two were already familiar with the route, as Izuku had been working there for a little while now and Sukue always walked with him. Of course not. Sukue said. I get to make new friends. See new quirks. Train to become a hero. What could I be nervous about? Izuku gave her a surprised look for a moment before smiling. I guess when you put it like that, you really do have nothing to fear. You're you after all. Sukue grinned. And you built me this way, so you have to take credit for my amazingness too. Izuku turned red. Suddenly Izuku found himself getting hoisted over Sukue's shoulder. I want to get there early, so we need to go. She said before speeding off. Sukue. Izuku yelled as his already red face turned crimson from being carried. Later Sukue scanned the halls looking for her classroom. It didn't take her long, as the entrance was a large door with 1A on it. She stood in front of the door with a large grin on her face. All right. This is it. My class for the next 3 years. Sukue said to herself. She opened the door. Take your feet off the desk. Shouted a blue-haired boy. It is disrespectful to the students who previously used them. Bakugo glared at him. Who the F cares? F, Sukue said. All the joy she had was gone after seeing Bakugo. He may have been part of her creation process, but he was still an but. Language. The boy said, marching up to her. Future heroes should not use such deplorable language. Sukue shook her head. I apologize. It's just me and him don't have a good history. How long have you known him? About 2 minutes. The boy said. Then you already have a grasp on his personality, Sukue said, shooting Bakugo a smug look. In response, Bakugo flipped her off and said nothing. Sukue gasped. That's the nicest thing he said to me. Bakugo was about to curse at her when a large green caterpillar appeared in the doorway. Everyone turned to look at it, no one saying anything, when suddenly something started coming out of it. Turns out it was a sleeping bag containing Eraserhead. If you're done acting like preschoolers, I would like to start class. He said. Most of the students were wondering who exactly this was, but Sukue already knew. Eraserhead. She squealed. So cool. Eraserhead raised an eyebrow, surprised that somebody recognized him. Then he realized that this was the android that he had been told about. He decided to ignore it and move on. Get changed and meet me outside in the field. He said, getting right to the point. This shocked the class, who was not used to such an approach. But what about orientation? Uraraka said. Waste of time, Eraserhead said. Before anyone could say anything else, he walked out of the room, leaving them all speechless. Except for Sukue, who stood up and started walking out before realizing her class was in shock. Judging from the data I have on Eraserhead's teaching style, we are all in for a very interesting year. She said to everyone before turning and leaving. Later in the girls' locker room. Momo Yaoyorozu felt very uncomfortable. She was somewhat used to getting stared at by both men and females alike, but something about Sukue's gaze was unusual. The girl's gaze was fixed on her chest, but unlike most people who looked at her with envy or perviness, she seemed to be looking at her with curiosity. "Could you stop looking at my chest?" she asked uncomfortably. Sukue's eyes shot up to Momo's eyes. "Sorry." She then looked up at the ceiling for a few moments before getting a determined look in her eye and saying, "For science." She then walked right out of the girls' locker room. "I have a bad feeling about what's about to happen next," Ochiko said. Later outside, all the students had gathered outside waiting for their teacher. The boys were giving Sukue some strange looks though, ranging from glares to winks. "Midoriya!" Ida yelled at Sukue. "Bursting into the men's locker room is against the rules. It is also shameful behavior for a student of you, eh?" "You did what?" yelled most of the girls. Except for Mina, who snickered. "I wish to test my sexuality," Sukue explained. "I had no particular attraction towards the females, so I tried the males. There was no attraction there either." "Wait, so you're asexual?" Toru asked. Sukue shrugged. "No clue. I'll have to ask father." "Ask me what?" Everyone looked in front of them to see Eraserhead and Izuku walking toward them. Izuku was now in a white lab coat and green shirt with blue jeans. "Deku!" Bakugo yelled. "The F are you doing here?" "Language," Ida yelled, chopping the air. "Shove it, glasses!" Bakugo snarled. "Quite." Eraserhead yelled, activating his quirk. Bakugo grumbled but didn't say anything. "Good," Eraserhead said, deactivating his quirk. "This is Izuku Midoriya. He is an engineer at you, what?" yelled everyone but Sukue and Todoroki. The latter just looked at him with wide eyes. "But he's the same age as us," Mina shouted. "Shouldn't he graduate first before getting a job?" Kaminari asked. "He did graduate," Sukue said. "He graduated on the same day of the entrance exam." "Wahat!" yelled most of the class again. "How the hell did Deku graduate before me?" Bakugo yelled. "Well, when you're smart enough to create life, high school just seems unnecessary," Eraserhead said. "Wahatat!" yelled the class again, this time even Todoroki joined in. Wait. Kaminari said. "His name's Midoriya. And can I call you Sukue?" Sukue nodded. "Sukue's name is Midoriya." Kaminari continued. "And when Suku said she needed to ask her dad, that guy said that he was her father. Plus there are those rumors about that robot girl." "Oh my god, Sukue's a robot!" Mina yelled. Momo spoke up. "That seems a little far-fetched, correct?" Eraserhead said, "Izuku was the one who built Sukue, and as such you, allowed his to graduate immediately. Afterward, he was offered a job at you. As an engineer. Now that's dealt with, let's move on. If you have more questions you can ask him after the lesson." "But I have so many questions," Mina said, saying what most of the class was thinking. "Moving on," Eraserhead said more forcefully. "I was going to have a quirk apprehension test." But Nizu and Midoriya had other ideas. Before anyone could ask anything, Izuku pulled out a big red button from his coat and then pressed it. Suddenly the ground started shaking, and All Might came out, bursting out of the ground. "What the F?" Bakugo yelled. "Combat test. Go," Eraserhead said. Before any of them could react, All Might charged at the class and was about to punch Mina. Just before she got hit, Kirishima stepped in front of her and hardened his arms, blocking the hit. "Holy CRP, holy SHT, we have to fight freakin' All Might!" Mineta yelled. Sukue blasted All Might with her laser eyes, knocking him back, and Sato followed up by eating a bunch of sugar, then landing a right hook on him. All Might recovered and charged Sato, tackling him and throwing him aside. Before he could do anything else, however, he was fully encased in a huge chunk of ice. "That won't hold," Him for long, Todoroki said. We need a plan fast. The pressure increased as the students could hear the sounds of ice breaking, knowing that soon All Might would be free. This is not All Might, Sukue said, causing everyone to look at her in confusion. All Might is much stronger and faster than this, and my sensors detect that our foe is not holding back. And given that my father is here, our opponent is most likely a robot. So we're not fighting All Might? Mineta asked hopefully. Sukue shook her head. No. Todoroki grunted as he added another layer of ice to stall the fake All Might. While that's useful to know, we still need a plan. Just blast him, Sukue said. A combined assault from all of us should be able to destroy this thing. TT. I don't need your help. I could beat this fake by myself. Bakugo yelled. Sukue rolled her eyes. While Bakugo could probably beat this thing by himself, it would not be easy. At that moment the fake All Might broke free of ice. Although it was not undamaged. The ice seemed to have done a number on it, and its fake skin was torn in several places, including its eye. Sato, Kirishima, can you hold it in place? Sukue asked. The two nodded and charged at the robot. I can help. Uraraka said, running off with them. The fake All Might charged at Uraraka, but Kirishima blocked its punch. Sato took this opportunity to grab its arms, holding it in place. Uraraka then touched the automaton, causing it to float. Sato threw it up in the air, making it completely vulnerable. Unfortunately, it started floating out of range. It's going out of range. Sukue yelled. Not on my watch, Siro said, using his tape to wrap it up and keep it from floating any further. Now. Sukue signaled, letting off a full power eye blast. Don't tell me what to do. Bakugo shouted while sending a high power blast at the fake. Momo shot a cannonball from the cannon she made, unfortunately making a giant hole in the back of her tracksuit, and Aoyama unleashed his naval laser. These attacks all landed and blew the machine to bits. Once the smoke from the attack cleared, there was nothing but a bunch of floating bits of metal. Release, Urikara said, making the metal fall to the ground. We did it. Mineta cheered. You didn't really do anything, Siro muttered. Sukue crossed her arms in a proud stance, with a smug grin on her face. And it was all thanks to my plan. You're welcome. Like I said. I could have destroyed that thing on my own. Bakugo snarled. Is he always in butt? Kaminari asked. Congratulations, Eraserhead said sarcastically. You finished the warm-up. Now on to the real test. Wait, what? Mina said. Izuku pulled out another button from his other pocket and pressed it. Suddenly the ground started shaking again, this time much more violently. Then 10 more All Might robots popped out of the ground. Oh, come on. Mina shouted. Ha! Mineta screamed in terror. The fake All Mights charged them all, scattering them and splitting them up. One of the robots was about to punch Ochako, but Sukue blasted them with a full power blast, knocking it to the side. Sukue kept blasting the robot, destroying its fake flesh and burning the metal. Then the beam stopped. Optic beams reaching overheating level. Need to go on cool down. DMN it. Sukue thought as the robot charged her. Just before it reached it, suddenly started floating. Sukue took this opportunity to punch the robot into the air. Sukue looked at Ochako, who let out a sigh of relief. Made it. Thank you, Sukue said, smiling at the girl. You saved me first. Ochako smiled back. Sukue looked up at the now flying robot. In 5 seconds I'll be able to unleash another blast. I'm going to go into overcharge mode and destroy him in one go. Ochako nodded. 5, Sukue said. 4, Ochako said. 3. 2. 1. Release. Ochako yelled, bring her fingertips together. Gravity returned to the robot and it fell down to Earth. Izuku stood underneath the robot and looked up. Nova Blast! Sukue yelled as she unleashed a massive blast from her eyes, up at the robot. The fake All Might was consumed by the blast and was obliterated. Ochako looked up at the blast with wide eyes, before looking back at Sukue whose eyes were smoking. Sukue looked back and was delighted by the shocked expression Ochako was wearing. Cool huh? Sukue said. Yeah. Ochako said excitedly. Why didn't you do that earlier? Oh, simple. If I use it then I won't be able to use my optic blast for an hour. Sukue answered. Oh, Ochako said. Meanwhile Kirishima held off one of the fake All Mights, protecting Mina who was behind him and Mineta who was behind her. The fake punched him again, chipping away at Kirishima defense. A little help here. Kirishima grunted as the robot whittled away at his quirk. Mina turned to Mineta. What does your quirk do? I have sticky ball, Mineta said nervously. Mina would have laughed if it wasn't for the situation she was in. Alright. You stick him, I'll melt him. What? Mineta yelled. I can't dash. Kirishima was knocked back a little as he tried to hold back the robot. Ha! Mineta yelled. He threw his ball right behind the robot in a panicked fashion. Kirishima saw this opportunity and took the offense. Red Gauntlet. He punched the robot at full power, putting a small dent in its chest and knocking it onto Mineta's ball. The robot struggled, trying to free itself but to no avail. Mina smiled. My turn. She then doused the robot in acid, melting it down until it exploded. Yes. Mina cheered. She looked at Kirishima and Mineta. High five. Kirishima and Mina high-fived while Mineta tried in vain to jump up and join. Meanwhile Ojiro narrowly dodged another punch. The robot was no fighter, it just swung randomly at the tailed boy. Ojiro used this to his advantage and managed to block or deflect the fake's blows. Dark Shadow. Tokoyami yelled. Bind him. Dark Shadow shot out from Tokoyami's body and wrapped around the robot's body. Unfortunately one of its arms was free. It was about to punch Dark Shadow, but Tsuyu's tongue wrapped around it and kept it in place. Jiro now. Send him to the void. Tokoyami yelled. Jiro ran up next to the barely contained robot and shoved one of her earphone jacks in the thing's ear. She let off a full-volume blast of sound in the thing's head, making it explode and its body to fall to the ground. Yes. Jiro cheered. Meanwhile Sato was holding off one of the robots but he could only so much damage and his quirk was starting to take its toll on him. Hey. Said Toru. Close your eyes. Me and the French dude have a plan. Sato nodded and shut his eyes. Toru unleashed a flash of bright light, causing the robot's optic center to go into overload. Grab him from behind. Toru yelled. Sato opened his eyes and saw that the robot was blinded. He went behind him and put him into a hold. Now. Toru said. Prepare to be dazzled. Aoyama said, unleashing a powerful blast at the robot's head. Destroying it. Wahoo! Toru cheered, doing a victory dance no one could see. We did it. Aoyama smiled as he silently hoped this would be over soon so he could use the bathroom. Meanwhile one of the robots was rapidly attempting swat away a flock of birds summoned by Koda to distract the machine. Then Sero took this chance to wrap the thing in tape, leaving it defenseless. Kaminari smirked and ran up to the huge robot, before jumping on top of it. Get the birds out. Kaminari said. Koda nodded. Fly. Away my friends. The birds dispersed and Kaminari grinned. Indiscriminate discharge 1,300,000 volts. He yelled, unleashing a massive burst of electricity causing the machine to explode and Kaminari was knocked into the air. Luckily he was caught by Dark Shadow who brought him down safely. You okay, dude? Zero asked. Way, Kaminari responded with a stupid look on his face. Probably just quirk kickback, Zero said. Hopefully. Meanwhile Shoji held the struggling robot in place, using his quirk to wrap his tentacle-like arms around it, while Ida ran in wide circles around them. Ida had said it would take him a while to get into full gear, so Shoji had to hold him off while he got there. After a few more seconds Ida reached his top speed and ran full force at the two. Recipro burst. He yelled as he kicked the robot's head off. Shoji let go of the robot's limp body and gave Ida a thumbs up. Meanwhile, Bakugo was getting his butt kicked. Perhaps taking on two of these things at once wasn't the best idea, but like hell, he was going to let anything Deku made beat him. He hit one of them with an explosion, knocking it back, only for the other one to punch him in the face, causing him to go flying and land on his back. The robot tried to stomp Bakugo, but he rolled out of the way and was about to retaliate when the other robot kicked him. Bakugo rolled across the ground using his explosions to stop himself. He got up and the robots ran at him. Just as he was about to unleash a strong explosion at the both of them, two EMPs were thrown on both the robots' heads, causing them to shake and malfunction until they just both deactivated. Bakugo looked back to see that it was Momo who had done them in. I didn't need your help. Bakugo yelled. Momo ignored that. We need to help Todoroki. He also took on two of them and Bakugo rolled his eyes. Look behind you, dumbass. Momo looked behind her and saw that Todoroki had impaled both the robots on ice spikes. Oh, Momo said. All the robots were defeated as many of the students cheered and celebrated. Izuku looked at Eraserhead. So do they have potential? Eraserhead sighed. These robots were tough. Even he would have a difficult time taking them out. For these kids to take down 10 of them proved that they had what it took to be heroes. Which meant that Eraserhead would actually have to do his job this time. Yay! Alright, Eraserhead shouted, getting the students' attention. You all proved you had at least some semblance of skill, so none of you are getting expelled for now. Go change, then you're dismissed. The students ran off, leaving a smiling Izuku and a grumpy Eraserhead. Later in the girls' locker room. So are you really a robot? Mina asked Sukue, looking all over her body for any robotic parts. Yup, Sukue said, happy to have another chance to talk about herself. The world's first fully sentient android. I dunno, you look human to me, Jiro said skeptically. In response, Sukue reached for the opening in her artificial skin and took it off, revealing her metallic face. I take it back, you're definitely a robot, Jiro said. That explains why you called that guy father when we met. Achiko said. I was so confused when that happened. I thought you guys were just weird. Well, I would hardly call a teenager making a scientific breakthrough that's leaps and bounds above anything else in his field normal, Momo said. Suddenly the door slammed open and a pink-haired girl rushed in. Where is she? The girl yelled before her eyes landed on Sukue. It's true, she said in a whispery tone as she walked right up to Sukue. You're real. The marvel of technology I've dreamed about for years is real. The girl looked all around her body, not caring where her hands went, making all the other girls go wide-eyed as their classmate was being felt up. Ah. I get I amazing, but slow down a bit, Sukue said. She didn't mind the girl was doing, she was just really confused. Oh, my name is Meihatsum. Please let me see inside you, she said. Phrasing. Mina yelled. Sure, Sukue said. Ha, responded most of the girls. My father will probably want to do a rundown on my systems after I get changed, Sukue explained. You can come if want. Yes, Mei said, drooling slightly. Later at Izuku's new lab. Izuku's new lab was a small building on U.A.'s campus that was made recently for him. It was large and filled with all sorts of machines to do various things. Sukue opened the door and Izuku, who was working on something, looked at her. "Oh, Sukue." Izuku said smiling. "You're just in time for dash." Suddenly he was tackled by a pink streak and fell to the floor with something on top of him. Something very soft. He looked up to see Mei on top of him with her bub right in his face. All the color drained from his face. "You're the person who made her," Mei said, not caring about his age. "That's incredible. Please let me help you make your babies." It was that day Izuku had a near-death experience at the hands of Bub and poorly phrased sentences.